Welcome to Big Flick Energy. With the recent release of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, we were shown that this film actually takes place after all 4 Shrek films. A lot of people thought that it was going to take place after the first Puss in Boots film and before all the Shrek films, but no, it's actually the last film in this Shrek world. However, I've had this theory for a while, similar to the Pixar Theory, which is very famous, saying that all the Pixar movies take place in the exact same universe. I have a very similar theory about DreamWorks, and I actually kind of think it works better than the Pixar Theory. So today I'm going to tell you how all these films are connected, and especially how Puss in Boots: The Last Wish will fit into this universe. So this is a chronological order of how all these projects work, and before I start, I just want to state some rules. So no 2D animation films are in this list, meaning Prince of Egypt isn't in it amongst other films, and the same goes for films like Wallace and Gromit for stop motion. So everything is 3D animated. TV shows are included in this list. However, the TV shows need to have been part of an already established franchise, meaning like a show like Dino Trucks, that does not fit into this universe. However, a show like Kung Fu Panda: The Dragon Knight does fit into this world. So now that we got the rules out of the way, here we go. So we start off with the Croods. So in the Croods, cavemen, humans, and animals, where humans are obviously the smartest, but animals besides speech are near caveman intelligence. However, apes show a high level of knowledge, making their own weapons and their own language that humans can even learn to communicate with them through. We see many crazy creatures that could resemble the mystical creatures we will begin seeing later on in the DreamWorks universe. Through evolution, it's very possible humans thrived because of their intelligence, like Guy and the Bettermans, while other cave people may have evolved differently based on where they lived and how they had to adapt. It's very possible that through evolution, different cavemen, like ones who moved to swamps, started to look like ogres, like Shrek, where they have green skin to blend in with the swamp. Ones who live underground started to look like the trolls from Trollhunters, who have rocky skin to blend in with the underground. It is evident how intelligent animals in this universe are, which explains their intelligence in the next couple films in this theory. It would make sense that the animals that stayed independent, like the apes, stayed intelligent, while the ones that became dependent on humans eventually devolved, which leads to different animal intelligences throughout the films because of different backgrounds. So from the Croods area, we have Dawn of the Croods, then the Croods, then the Croods: A New Age, and then the Croods family tree, which all takes place in the time of the cavemen. So now we move on to the Trolls world. Not Trollhunters, Trolls. Here we see the society of the Trolls that is based solely on happiness and music. Their world appears very uninterrupted by human life, so it can easily take place between Croods and Shrek to show some of the mystical creatures that live on the other side of the mountain, or just around the world that hasn't even been discovered. This is very possible as we see some resemblance between the Trolls and Guy and Croods, as both use animals for things humans use today. For example, Guy has a pet sloth named Belt that he uses as a belt. In the Trolls TV show and movies, we see tons of strange animals like the ones we would see in Croods, but we specifically see in the TV show creatures known as Catterbus, which is a caterpillar used as a bus by trolls, Bobble Sledge Bug, which is used as a bobsled for the enjoyment of trolls, and in the movie Trolls World Tour, the Angler Bus, which is the rock trolls transportation method and is an anglerfish. It's very possible this other side of the world is much more advanced than they let on, which could be the start of why we see humans working with mystical creatures to advance the world. But eventually, they try to take everything from them. Given by the Trolls' belief of everything is so happy, it's very possible they took lightly to the humans taking them out, not thinking anything of it until it was too late. Also, the Bergens were a very advanced society, but they became very happy and musical like the Trolls at the end of the film. It's possible their change of heart could have also helped the humans get in with them and eventually destroy their culture. We do see a race of trolls in Trollhunters that resembles the Bergens, but we'll get into that later. So, from Trolls, we move on from the Croods family tree to Trolls, to travel through Troll Village, to Trolls Holiday, to Trolls Dress Up, to Trolls Together, to Trolla-Palooza Tour, to Trolls The Beat Goes On, to Trolls World Tour, to Tiny Diamond Goes Back to School, to TrollsTopia. And we finish with the Trolls world there. I had no idea there were so many projects in this Trolls world, but I guess there are. So next up, we go to a fan favorite, How to Train Your Dragon. So this takes place at the same time as Shrek, but on the other part of the world where all mystical creatures have left or been killed by the Vikings. However, the Vikings have not been able to kill the dragons off due to them being the strongest creatures in the world as seen in Shrek. Their crazy obsession with killing all dragons and mystical creatures has allowed for development on this side of the world to halt until dragons are killed, which is why Shrek's area is so much more developed because they have worked with mystical creatures like the fairy godmother, though mystical creatures that are considered beasts like Shrek are widely hated by humans. This also explains why how everyone in How to Train Your Dragon is about old tech and no magic, while Shrek embraces the creatures in some way either to exploit them or befriend them. So, in this area, we have, after TrollsTopia, How to Train Your Dragon, Racing for the Gold, Legend of the Bone Napper Dragon, Book of Dragons, Gift of the Night Fury, Dragons Riders of Berk, Dragons Defenders of Berk, Dawn of the Dragon Racers, Dragons Race to the Edge, How to Train Your Dragon 2, How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, The Dragon Sheep Chronicles, Snoggletog Log, How to Train Your Dragon Homecoming, Dragon's Rescue Riders, Dragon's Rescue Riders Hunt for the Golden Dragon, Dragon's Rescue Riders Secrets of the Songwing, Dragon's Rescue Riders Hutscaler Holiday, Dragon's Rescue Riders Heroes of the Sky. So there actually is something later on that's from this same How to Train Your Dragon world, but that actually takes place in modern day, and we will eventually get back to that. So, like I mentioned before, this all takes place in the same time period as Shrek. So we start off with Puss in Boots. So we're introduced to magic and the other side of the world where humans are at the highest class. But there are other high-class individuals like the fairy godmother, who is probably a human given she looks like a human besides her wings, and her son Prince Charming is a human. Besides her though, there really aren't many, as they have all had to become criminals or outcasts in society. They are slowly going towards a world more like How to Train Your Dragon, but instead of trying to kill them off, they're exploiting them until they have the resources to kill them off, as seen in Shrek 4, where Rumpelstiltskin had an army of witches take over and enslave the ogres. We also see Rumpelstiltskin bring in the Pied Piper that has a ton of different modes to control different creatures, including rats that he walks on top of, ducks, witches that he forced to dance, unicorns, and ogres that he forced to dance. As the next phase of films begin, the only mystical creatures that are left are those in hiding, like trolls from Trollhunters and animals that can talk that act as normal animals. Donkey would never shut up, but Puss in Boots used his cuteness and deception to make people believe he was just a normal cat just to strike them down. We even see this in Puss in Boots The Last Wish, where he's able to disguise himself amongst other cats pretty well. It's very possible some talking animals were smart like Puss and decided the only way they could survive would be by staying quiet until they have a chance to rise again. So in this part of the world, we have Puss in Boots, then Puss in Boots The Three Diablos, then The Adventures of Puss in Boots, which is a TV show, The Pig Who Cried Werewolf, Shrek, The Ghost of Lord Farquaad, Shrek 2, Far Far Away Idol, Shrek 3, Shrek the Halls, Shrek Forever After, Scared Shrekless, and Puss in Boots The Last Wish, which Puss in Boots The Last Wish actually sets up Shrek 5 at the end of the film. One other thing I want to mention though is that in The Adventures of Puss in Boots, the TV show, Puss meets another female cat known as Dulcinea instead of Kitty Softpaws, which is his love interest in Puss in Boots and Puss in Boots The Last Wish, and they eventually go off and ride into the sunset together at the end of that TV show, showing that they're going to start going on missions together. So my current theory for this is, in a similar way to what happened with Kitty, he eventually abandoned Dulcinea. Maybe they were going to get married, but maybe it was before that he just abandoned her, and that's why you keep on seeing him just abandon all of these characters. And I think it actually adds a lot more to the story in Puss in Boots The Last Wish, where we know he abandoned Kitty, he abandoned Shrek, he abandoned Dulcinea, he's abandoned everybody. So that last film, Puss in Boots The Last Wish, really showed him become a character that can rely on others. So right after this, like I mentioned before, we move on to the next phase where magic has sort of faded away. And we start with Spirit, which shows the human-animal connection that is explored more in other projects down the road, and the intelligence that some animals have. So here we see Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron, Spirit Riding Free, and Spirit Untamed. We then go on to Rise of the Guardians, where in this movie we see childhood legends like Santa, Tooth Fairy, Easter Bunny, Sandman, and Jack Frost take on the Boogeyman. These are magical creatures given power after their death to protect humans by the Man in the Moon. The Man in the Moon is the same boy fishing in the moon from the DreamWorks logo, which sort of helps us link everything together with the Man in the Moon being our godlike being that does not interfere with life until after death. Magical creatures like the Man in the Moon can help explain why the fairy godmother has potions to switch people's forms and destinies, and same with Rumpel. We see magic make people into much stronger or different individuals. One other example of this is how Jim from Trollhunters becomes much stronger after acquiring the Sword of Daylight. All of this magic power most likely comes from the Man on the Moon's interference with humanity, and probably giving other individuals magic after death, like the fairy godmother, which is why she looks like a human, but has wings, so she was altered, and individuals like her spread magic throughout the world in ways the Man on the Moon never anticipated. In Shrek, we know they celebrate Christmas, which means Claus must already be alive. We know the team, besides Jack, have been around for a while together, so we can assume they all came together before the time of Shrek. The team dynamic actually explains a lot, as we see 3 human team members as shown by their faces. Tooth Fairy is human as seen by skin on face, and also 1 talking rabbit. This is because the team was probably made in a time where the Man on the Moon saw the destruction happening on Earth, where humans wanted to take everybody else out, so he created a group, the Guardians, who after their death would be given abilities to make the people of Earth happy and more innocent, and would still believe in magic. In some ways it was a smart move, but in other ways he created villains like the Boogeyman and the Fairy Godmother, who use their powers for evil. This film really explains the spread of magic in the world. So here we get to see the film Rise of the Guardians. Something else we get to see around this time is Bob's Big Break, which is actually related to Monsters vs. Aliens, which we'll get to later, but this takes place earlier on in time, so we had to put it in here. And something else that takes place at a different time from where the rest of it takes place is, like I mentioned before, a How to Train Your Dragon TV show, Dragons: The Nine Realms, which takes place in modern day, where apparently there still are dragons. So this is extra evidence that there are still magical creatures in our world. They have not all been taken out. And we continue seeing that when we enter the world of Trollhunters, Tales of Arcadia. So Trollhunters was a series made by Guillermo del Toro on Netflix by DreamWorks, where it was actually one of 3 series, and then it had a final film that came out right after. I wasn't a fan of the film, but I love the 3 TV shows, which were Trollhunters, Three Below, and Wizards. In Trollhunters, we get to see a lot more magic through extra dimensions and some mystical creatures hiding out as people in society. We also see how unknowing people are about these trolls and other similar creatures, showing that while the tech takes place in modern day, nobody knows about these mysterious creatures anymore except as legends as history has been altered. In Three Below, we see a similar story where nobody has any idea aliens are real, and they contain the knowledge of aliens to very specific individuals. Since nobody knows about aliens, this needs to take place at least before Monsters vs. Aliens and Home. We see characters from Shrek 3 in King Arthur and Merlin, but King Arthur is older here and Merlin is younger than in Shrek 3. However, based on the difference of body type and emotion towards creatures, we can assume this King Arthur is the ancestor of the one from Shrek. This can also explain why Far Far Away is gone in present day, because King Arthur became its king in Shrek, but in lore he was only ever king of Camelot. So perhaps he rebranded Far Far Away as Camelot, and we know in modern day it's flying in the sky, which explains why it is gone in our world. Merlin being younger now is a plot hole, but we also see something interesting in Shrek. In Shrek, Merlin is very weak in magic and about to die. However, in Wizards, we know he is immortal, younger, and very powerful in magic. Merlin may be one of the chosen guardians by the Man on the Moon, as it would explain his increase in power level, change of age, immortality, and knowledge of things beyond time. Also, we know Arthur basically got rid of magic in Camelot and started treating all mystical creatures as monsters. This may be the time in which humanity lost touch with magic and these creatures. We also see dragons in this world, but very rarely. Also, Steve, after leaving the 12th century, says Camelot is crazy. Why don't they talk about it in the history books? Which is kind of interesting to hear because, as mentioned before, it seems like they wrote all magic out of history. Archie, the talking cat that can switch forms into a dragon, says once, cats don't have the right to vote, and neither do dragons. Yet, could he potentially be in on the plans for the eventual takeover of animals? We will get into that later. So despite Merlin being immortal, he did die. However, we know from many different tales that nobody is truly immortal. The fairy godmother who was probably given powers also died. Pitch in Rise of the Guardians appears to have died at the end of the film. Also, Morgana, before dying, says she fears the age of wizardry ends with her and Merlin, which is obviously a hint that the world in modern times will eventually phase out of magic. So in this side of the world, we have 4 projects: Trollhunters Tales of Arcadia, Three Below Tales of Arcadia, Wizards Tales of Arcadia, and then, like I mentioned before, the film that I wasn't a huge fan of, Trollhunters Rise of the Titans. And with Three Below coming to a conclusion in that franchise, it actually takes us pretty smoothly into the world of aliens, where we start with the Project Home, followed by Home Adventures with Tip and O, which goes smoothly into Monsters vs. Aliens. So in Monsters vs. Aliens, we hear Dr. Cockroach say, "They called me crazy, but I'll show them. I'll show them all." This line shows that Dr. Cockroach has a much larger plan than what he's letting on. He's obviously out of touch with humans now and may try to reassert himself into society by creating an entirely new society led by animals. In his research of how to live forever, though he looked at roaches, he most likely analyzed many animals and could have found some interesting information on super intelligent animals. His ultimate plan may be to gather them together to eventually overthrow the humans. Here we see again the common trend of humans fearing these beasts no matter what. Even Blob, who is very nice and looks harmless, they feared. Because of the film Home, the general from Monsters vs. Aliens realized what good his monster hunting could do, and thus began a short period of humans exploiting these creatures again. The general said he had over 50 years of experience in hunting these monsters, so it is very unlikely he's only found 5 throughout all of his time there. There must have been more he found that just weren't that strong, that may have been like the creatures we saw in Shrek. In this franchise, we see Monsters vs. Aliens, Monsters vs. Aliens Mutant Pumpkins from Outer Space, Monsters vs. Aliens Night of the Living Carrots, and then Monsters vs. Aliens the TV show. Which then brings us into the next space-based project, Megamind.
Hello.
It's hello.
Oh. Hello?
The character is a trend that follows where beings that are different are outcast by society. Even though there's another alien in Metro Man, they all have always seen him as the hero, even though Megamind has a similar origin. He looks different and will never be accepted because of that. Even when he is known as a hero, people still fear him as he pulls a gun out and they all start running away in fear. Which I think anybody would do when somebody pulls a gun out, but we see the same thing in Shrek where all the creatures are outcasted except for one very powerful one, the fairy godmother who appears human but isn't anymore. She isn't human, but they treat her as such because she looks human. After Monsters vs. Aliens, we see the rise of the hero Metro Man and then Megamind. Because of such strong individuals, especially Metro Man, who is basically Superman, it's very possible the military monster program was disbanded and the military don't really even need that help at all. Whenever we see Megamind attack, there's no sight of the military even though he's bound to cause major damage, because they know Metro Man will handle it in a safer fashion most likely. This gives the military no real need for the monsters anymore, so it's possible that they disbanded the team or even tried to kill them. But killing would be hard given an indestructible giant butterfly, a slime ball, and a cockroach that was created to not die. The government may have only let 2 of the members go, however, Susan and Dr. Cockroach. Both were complete humans at some point, and Dr. Cockroach is smart enough to eventually reverse the process of being a monster, which he probably does, granting him his freedom. However, his newfound freedom doesn't change the fact that he's out for revenge and doesn't trust people for it. His newfound freedom is what gives him the opportunity to team up with animals to help enact his revenge, though he will eventually die as he is no longer a cockroach. So in this aspect, we have Megamind, then Megamind the Button of Doom, and then Megamind the TV show. This is then followed up by another project which kind of brings us back into this element of magic. And this project is Abominable. So Everest is this abominable snowman that has nature manipulation, though he lives in the snow. We know the Guardians have been and will be protecting Earth even through the film Kung Fu Panda, as they still celebrate Christmas in that time, but it's very possible that the man on the moon saw another crisis striking Earth of mankind's disregard for these mystical creatures, that he created beasts that could control nature and bring back life to the green of the world, acting as guardians of Earth itself and sort of the guardian Mother Nature. All of the Guardians have specific cues for when the world needs them. Santa on Christmas, Frost in winter, Tooth Fairy when somebody loses a tooth, Easter Bunny on Easter, and Sandman whenever somebody needs to sleep. However, a guardian who is Mother Nature, who is literally needed year-round, everywhere will need some help. We see Claus and Tooth Fairy both have assistants in elves and little fairies. It's very possible Mother Nature has her own crew in the Yetis. However, Everest gets caught by the humans who instantly try to protect it or put it down depending on who we are talking about. Rather than try to understand these creatures that are different, humanity instantly fears them and tries to kill them. Yi's violin is one of those magical items in the world similar to Jim's sword from Trollhunters. However, we see it start using magic after Everest rebuilds it. This further proves that the man on the moon bringing these magic users to Earth may be why there are so many magic relics on Earth. The fairy godmother probably enchanted each of the potions and can use her magic at such a large scale through those potions. So far, we've gotten Abominable and the Invisible City. This then takes us on to Over the Hedge, which just continues to show us how intelligent these animals are, and a lot of these projects in the future are going to focus in on that. So right after Over the Hedge, we go to Hammy's Boomerang Adventure, which is still in the Over the Hedge world, and then Antz, which once again shows us this animal intelligence. Now after this, we go to the Boss Baby, where the Boss Baby kind of goes into magic once again, showing how some babies sort of are immortal, that they're always babies. So I guess immortality is a thing here, but it's used more as a business, where babies are sold off as product. And something pretty interesting is the main antagonist of the first film actually tries to replace babies with animals, with puppies. So obviously everybody loves puppies, everybody loves babies. So these puppies are used as a ploy to get rid of the babies, and they are forever puppies. So there's evidently this type of technology that is replacing this type of magic, or magic is being used once again for the purposes of immortality. So in the Boss Baby world, we see the Boss Baby back in business, and the Boss Baby family business. So then we go on to the next project, which is Turbo, where right after Boss Baby, where we saw in some ways puppies are replacing babies, now we're starting to see that animals are becoming better at humans in everything. Where we already saw it in Over the Hedge, where these animals outsmarted humans, and now we're seeing it again in Turbo, where an animal known to be one of, if not the slowest animal in a snail, is able to defeat the best racer in the world. So obviously this snail didn't do it naturally. He did it through what I believe was magic, because I've never seen tech do that for somebody. So I'm pretty sure it's magic that allowed him to get those abilities of this super speed. And it just shows that animals have Mother Nature on their side, and the man on the moon is trying to help them, give them a lift so that magic can reign again, and that the world is in balance once again. So here we see Turbo and Turbo Fast, and then we go into the projects that kind of show how intelligent animals are above humans in the best way, which is the Madagascar world. So obviously in this world, we see these animals take on humans countless times and try to escape from a ton of situations. We see how intelligent they are, especially the penguins and the monkeys, where these penguins outsmart humans so many times in this franchise. And not to mention in the actual Penguins of Madagascar film, we see there's even a spy agency of animals now. So we already know that a lot of these animals are on the same level of intelligence of humans. A lot of them are better than humans, and they can even imitate humans, as we see with the main antagonist of the Penguins of Madagascar film, the octopus, who literally looks like a human for half of the film. So because of this, we now know that these animals are on par with humans, and there is a huge risk for them taking over. So this franchise starts with Madagascar A Little Wild, which is a prequel series where all these animals are kids, then All Hail King Julian, then Madagascar, then Merry Madagascar, then Madagascar Escape to Africa, then Madly Madagascar, Madagascar Europe's Most Wanted, then Penguins of Madagascar the movie, then The Penguins of Madagascar. And after this, we get to see the Bee Movie, the beloved Bee Movie. So the Bee Movie is one that's very interesting to me because you look at these animals and they're actually finally being taken seriously by the world, where they are having their own trial against humans, and they actually win the court case, where they get all of their honey back, and it kind of changes the entire world. It almost causes an apocalypse of the world because they won the court case. They outsmarted the humans. We see how intelligent these animals really are, where even the world is starting to recognize them as valuable figures. They just aren't these animals anymore. Now they're actually getting rights. They're getting their product back. So we really start to see this here. Now after this is another one where we see a huge court case, where now it's not just about can these animals live in society with us? Now it's also, can an animal raise a human child? In Mr. Peabody and Sherman, where we meet Mr. Peabody, who is the smartest being on Earth, smarter than any of the humans, and this dog is the father to this kid in many ways. So this is another case where we see animals are not only on par with humans now, but they win another case, which gives them even more rights, and they're probably better than humans at this point. And here we see Mr. Peabody and Sherman and the Mr. Peabody and Sherman show. Now after this, we eventually arrive to society where it's not just about animals fighting for rights anymore. They already have the rights in the bad guys. Yes, some of these animals are looked at as outcasts, but these are the ones that are historically predators or criminals. So they have those natural tendencies from the past. Similar to a character like Puss in Boots, which even though animals had rights in that time and he was a talking animal, he was still a criminal. So here we really get to see that some animals are some of the most respected individuals in the world. Others are not that respected, but they are all treated in society like they are people, where people and animals are living in full harmony at this point. The richest person is an animal. The government official is an animal. So animals really are taking over at this point. Then the final straw is when we go to Sharktale, where obviously it's underwater, so you're not going to see humans there, but you see that these animals are extremely intelligent and they have a society on par with humans that they created by themselves. They did not use the help of humans to create this. They did it by themselves, and look at where they are. So right after Sharktale, we jump countless years into the future, where it finally seems like animals have taken over. What happens between the bad guys and Kung Fu Panda? I have no idea. Whether it was an eventual war where these animals realized the value of magic that the man on the moon had been giving them, and they were able to use it to take out the humans, maybe having learned their history of what the humans did to them in the past, so they tried to take them all out and regain all power. Who knows? Maybe it could have been genocide. That would be insane for a world like DreamWorks. But to be fair, the Pixar world, which is even more kid-friendly than DreamWorks, had a massive twist as well, which wasn't animals committing genocide for all humans, but was instead all humans having to leave Earth after a company polluted it and robots basically took over. So I don't think it's that far-fetched to think that this could be the ultimate future for this DreamWorks world, where these animals were obviously taking over in many ways. They were faster, they were smarter, they were stronger. They were doing everything better than humans, possibly with the help of the man on the moon and the mystical creatures like the Yetis, which eventually led to Kung Fu Panda, where the characters that have chi are these animals. They're the ones that master Kung Fu, and you see that their society is not as technologically savvy anymore. It's more in the past, but they all seem very happy. It seems like a society where everybody has a form of happiness, and it's all surrounded by these characters which have these magic abilities. They all have this Kung Fu which grants them power, and they do special moves which no human can ever do. So because they have these abilities, it really seems like this is what gave them that advantage to really take over the world. And it really makes this world go full circle. The world starts with Croods, where humans find these magical creatures. Eventually the humans conquer these magical creatures, where only few are left, and then some of them have to go in hiding, whether it be underground for some creatures or the talking animals can just hide in plain sight. They took back the world that was taken from them long ago, which is why we still see dragons in the Kung Fu Panda universe, because some of them were still in hiding, which is why so many of these animals are intelligent. And it's very likely they were given these magical abilities where now they are all intelligent. And just to clarify, I know it's not 100% logical for all technology to fade away, which is why you still have some characters and some technology in this world. It's not like all technology is gone, it's just heavily been replaced by magic, which has been proven in this world to be much more efficient for some of the characters. Once again, it seems like a society where they are all happy, where they don't really have to run away from a character like Lord Farquaad anymore and all move in with Shrek. They can all just live their own personal lives, and sadly, this resulted in the end of the human race in the DreamWorks world. But after 99 projects, where we finished with Kung Fu Panda, Kung Fu Panda Secrets of the Furious 5, Kung Fu Panda Legends of Awesomeness, Kung Fu Panda Holiday, Kung Fu Panda Secrets of the Masters, Kung Fu Panda Secrets of the Scroll, Kung Fu Panda 2, Kung Fu Panda 3, Kung Fu Panda The Paws of Destiny, and Kung Fu Panda The Dragon Knight, after these 99 projects, we finally have the DreamWorks Theory, which in my opinion, actually makes a lot more sense than the Pixar Theory. So, thank you so much for watching this video, and I really want to know what you guys think about this DreamWorks Theory, if you think it's legitimate, if you think the Pixar Theory is better, if you would add anything, if you think that you could add a show like Dino Trucks to this, or if you think all TV shows should just be taken out, and what you guys think the future of it is. I know that they already think that they're going to do 3 projects, like Trolls 3, Kung Fu Panda 4, Shrek 5, and also the Megamind TV show I mentioned. So, please let me know what you all think. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and click the bell notification for more videos in the future. Thanks again, and see you next time on Big Flick Energy.